Good afternoon, Good Shepherd. It's Wednesday, August 5th, and this is our first midweek moment of August. I am very happy to be back from vacation, although, as you all know, leaving vacation is hard. It was a good time away. Did a lot of fishing, a lot of cycling, a lot of hiking, a lot of bird watching. Spent a lot of time outdoors. We enjoyed Durango, some time in Durango, and I enjoyed my favorite place, Rocky Mountain National Park. It was a good time away, refreshing, but I'm glad to be back. And I want to give a special thanks to those folks who made it very possible for me to be away with the least amount of stress, and that would be Karen, Elson and Deb Sampson for being the officiants for morning prayer while I was gone, and for Sandy Boyd and Mary Mead for preaching, and for Dee Dee, who was able to put together or at least facilitate all of the technological stuff behind the scenes. We had some last minute challenges and she was able to fly through those. So I'm very, very grateful to all of them. Earlier today, we had our first Gospel and Grub Bible study on this coming Sunday's Gospel reading. And without telegraphing what I'm going to say, because I'm still not absolutely positive how I'll address the lessons, at least two of the lessons that we have coming up on Sunday have to do with fear. The Old Testament lesson is Elijah, who goes to the mountain to get away from Jezebel. And that's where the still small voice comes to him. The still small voice of God comes to him. But Elijah's asked why he's there. And it's clear that he's a little bit afraid. And God tells Elijah, go, I'm with you. Do these things. You're not alone. The gospel lesson is Jesus walking on the water. And it's, the disciples are there rowing away and are afraid. Jesus shows up walking on the water. That makes them afraid. And he tells them, don't worry, be afraid. Don't worry, don't be afraid. So we talked about the gospel lesson, obviously, a few minutes ago. And I asked the participants what they thought folks at Good Shepherd in general were afraid of, not necessarily just the constant fear of COVID and contracting that or having loved ones contracted it, but as a congregation. And they pointed out that, observed quite rightly, that, the fear is we're not going to get back to normal. When are we going to be able to have communion again? All of these worries. And one of the comments was, we're fearful of losing community. And that's just so telling. I think that's very, very true. And so, like I say, I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to address all of that coming up on Sunday. So there's your teaser. We'll be dealing with fear a little bit and how common it is to our experience, but also what it means for Good Shepherd. With that in mind, I want to talk just briefly about questions of reopening that has been rattling around in the congregation for the last few weeks. We talked about it at vestry meeting just before I went away. And there have been a number of steps forward in that regard, but also a significant cautionary note that we received from the weekly gathering that I have, or that the congregational leaders have with the office of the bishop, this one being last week when I was gone. And part of what came out of that was the gathering had two experts. One is the head of the Tri-County Health Department, who certainly is involved in this, especially as it affects us in Arapahoe County and Douglas County, certainly. But also a professor at CU who's done a lot of work on aerosols, those things that exist in the air that we can't see, that aren't droplets, but that are sort of diffused. She compared it to like the smell of burnt toast. It's in the kitchen, 10 minutes later, it's in the bedroom. You can't see it, but you know it's there. And what we really need to be cautious about in terms of space, the 6-foot social distancing works in a lot of situations, but it doesn't work with aerosols. Air circulation in buildings needs to be addressed, and we don't have really good air circulation at Good Shepherd. That's not to say that we don't have good heating and air conditioning, but the circulation of air, we don't bring in a lot of fresh air, and we have no windows to open to allow fresh air to come in. So that's a concern. So we are still working on the question of how we're going to regather. We will regather. We're still worrying about how that exactly will take place. And it may be that we will meet outside before we meet inside. And that may be what will be the interim. And of course, we know that we'll only be able to meet outside until the weather turns nasty. And we don't know whether we'll have a vaccine by then, how many people will be vaccinated. We don't know what's going on. But we're working forward. As I said in an email to the vestry earlier this week, we're on shifting sands, and the sands keep shifting. There's nothing stable. For any of you who've ever spent much time walking on a beach, you know that that's the case. You put your foot down, pick it up, and it's gone. So there's very little that we can be confident about at this point. So that's a little bit about reopening. The last comment is, as I said in the sheepskin, this for the next 4 Sundays, the Faith Forum will be an opportunity for the congregation to come together with each other and with the transition, the folks who are sort of looking at transition, for some discussions, for some conversation about vision, who we see Good Shepherd being right now, what we see as we're doing, what do we see going down the line. And this isn't just with regard to COVID, it's also regard to what we see as our future as a congregation in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And so that will be the Faith Forum piece right after the service. And the way that we're going to do this is we're going to use the breakout room feature that Zoom allows us. So we'll have coffee hour, and then we'll break out into 2 different groups. We'll have 2 sessions, 2 questions each Sunday, and you'll have the opportunity to respond to one or the other of those questions. We haven't decided whether we want to let Zoom make that decision as to who goes into which discussion group, or whether we want to allow folks to choose. But we'll get that decision made. But here are the questions that we'll be addressing on Sunday. So I give them to you. They will come out in the e-news tomorrow, but I'll give them to you now so you can start thinking about the answers. And these questions were arrived at by the transition team through a lot of conversations with each other and with other groups. So here we go. First question we'll be talking about is what is Good Shepherd's purpose now on the corner of Dry Creek and Yosemite? Into what are we leaning? What are we leaning into? Does our local community cry out for something other than what we are providing? And what are we providing for our local community? Why does Good Shepherd even exist? And who are the people we serve? So this is a set of questions that has to do with our identity, who we are. We know where we've been, what brought us to where we've been. That was last year's task. So now the question is who are we? A similar question about who are we, but just with a different focus, is the other breakout room. We'll be talking about what are Good Shepherd's strengths? What brings you as a parishioner back to Good Shepherd time and time again? What is that? What are the stories we love to tell? And are there commonalities about those stories? Think about what it is that we love to talk about when we talk about Good Shepherd. And if you had to move away and start a new church, what core values and strategies would you take from Good Shepherd to implement in your new congregation? So those are the questions that we'll be dealing with this coming Sunday. Again, we will, folks will have an opportunity to address one or the other of those questions. They will be facilitated discussions. but it's your opportunity to give some really thoughtful conversation feedback to the team as everyone moves forward to plot our chart, plot our course into the future. So I look forward to engaging with you in those conversations. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. A reminder that tonight, 8:45, we will be having Compline. Look forward to seeing you there. It's been a wonderful service and a great addition to what we do in our worship life at Good Shepherd. Look forward to seeing you all soon. Blessings to you all. Bye-bye.